Good morning, everyone. You are here for Foundational Series number 5, and this one is on Google Forms. I'm putting the link in the chat, so you have the link to the session. And I'm going to tell you what, I recorded myself changing. Okay, so it isn't me. It's not going to work in a minute. It isn't me. I did this last night. I recorded myself doing it. I changed these settings. So I'm wondering somehow Google is resetting every night. I'm wondering if my brain is having a reset every night. If only I could. There, should work now. Just hit refresh, it'll work. So, Google Forms. People able to get in? Guys, did anybody just see me change it? Anyone on the internet with this link can edit. And they're like, no. Okay, I'm going to just give you a new link. I've decided the world hates me. Copy. Let's see what happens. Paste. I wonder why it did that, because I'm going to check one more time. Anyone on the internet with this link can edit. Okay, just checking to make sure. You all see it. I haven't lost my mind. It's all right there. Was all set up this morning. Was all set up last night. Shake your head if you get it this time. See your heads pop in, maybe. Oh, look at that. See you pop in. That's weird. That is so weird. Like, I really am a Google trainer. I really know how to change settings. So the fact that I have to change them at night and then come back in and change them again during the day, that does not make any sense to me. But maybe I've lost my noodle. All right, here we go. Goal of today. We are going to understand the basic parts of forms. So that's layout. Understand the difference between edit and share. That's a huge issue. There's 2 modes within it. We're going to understand the difference between them. Question types. Moving beyond the basics, like, so just a little, maybe some quizzes and things like that. Creating a simple form. Ways to look at data once you've collected it, because there are multiple ways to see it. And this ties into sheets. So some of you did sheets yesterday with me, which really isn't a form. No, which really isn't a basic training. But once you understand that you can take all your data to forms, it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to share some templates. I'm going to hope that they work. I'm looking to see if I have them in there. I think I do. And then I'm going to give you some tips and tricks. So some easy ways. All right. So what is forms? When we start the concept of what a form actually is, right? So this is a form right here. The one I was going to have you fill out, but doesn't work. But listen, that's been my story of my life. It is a way to collect data. And you can see it has a picture. This is I'm in shared mode. It gives you a basic idea of what it is. Some things are required. I can ask some real basic questions. I can ask a scale, almost like a Likert scale. It's not called a Likert scale, not a Likert scale. That's like, right, when we have an earthquake, that would be weird. One of those days. You can have a choice, and then you can actually section it up. This is not gonna, well, I'll just do it. We'll just do this quickly. I'll put my information in so you can see the process. I am positive that all of you have done a form before, whether you know you've done a form or whether you, so I have a rainy day, wet and cloudy, okay? It's icky out here. No. And today is Tuesday. How does the weather feel today? 1 being the worst. I hate rain. Just gonna say I'm a hate rain kind of girl. I'm a mustard on my, I'm a pickles on my hamburger and a ketchup on my fries. Okay, so I've done the first one. And when you come out here, you can see that I put a picture in, and then I asked a question about the picture, time to meet, some other things, and then a quick, easy. Beautiful. 8 a.m. Simple. Nobody really ever wants to meet at 8 a.m., but it is what it is, and submit. So you can see that's pretty simple. Those are the basic components of form. Just a quick flyby. Go in and quickly do it. I don't understand what's going on with my Google, but that's all right. So when we look at this, and I look here at this document right here, you'll see I have two different views. So I'm actually going to split this. I'm going to use that tab resize tool that I've used in the past. Maybe I'm going to, and maybe I'm not, because right now it's not going to give me access. I want you to see the difference between the two documents. I want to take this one again. Sorry, guys. I want to put this into preview. Yeah, I know I've already responded. Oh, it's a some days I just doesn't pay to be a human. And let's try that again. I want you to be able to see the difference between the two. I'm sorry. It doesn't pay to be a human some days. And today is one of those. Right now, I'm having one right now. Here we go. Perfect. All right. Difference between the two. Here we go. This one is edit and this one is shared. So if there's ever an issue I find that people make within forms is that they share from the wrong spot. So when we just look at them, there is a way to tell the difference. When we are in edit, we're in edit mode or like the building mode, you will see toolbars across the top. And if I actually go full screen here a little further, you'll see that you have toolbars up here. You have like, and when I say toolbars, it's not like we typically see toolbars, but there's tools. So you'll see settings, you'll see the eyeball, you'll see a color palette, you'll see the send button, you'll see more information. And you'll see in here that if I actually click on something, I can edit them and I can delete them. This is the edit mode. This over here is the send mode, right? The share mode. I have no tools, right? No tools across the top. I have no ability to come into these and make changes. Like I can't take things out, correct? So you can see all that. So if we're going to send this to someone, our first response, because the way that all of the other Google tools work is we come up to the share spot, or a lot of us have been trained to just come up here to the address bar, copy the address and send it, right? We're very used to that thought process. That does not work in forms, because if I do this and I send this to you, if I come up here and I send you this, I'm going to throw it in the chat, right? First of all, look how long it is. Oh, you can't see the chat because you just can't see. I'll send it so you'll see it. I send that to you in the chat. You literally could all come in here and make any changes to this you wanted, because this is the edit mode. This is the build mode that I just shared with you. The other one is an actual different address. So because it's in shared mode. All right, I'm going to put these back together. We're going to go full screen. All right. Does that make sense? The difference between the two? And that's a really big piece. And it seems so simple, but it's really the key component of forms. That's the biggest mistake I see happen. I see secretaries share from the edit stage, and then people are going in and changing the form, and it's not responding because you really can't save your responses or submit them if you share from that point. So you can see the difference here. I have two of them. Now this one looks a little different because this is the old mode. Which one is edit? And somebody can unmute. The top one or the bottom one? Which one is the edit mode? Sandra's got me zooming in. She can't see, right? Which one is edit mode? Can you tell? The bottom one. You got it, right? The bottom one is an edit mode. You guys, great. And the way to tell is you can see those extra set of tools up at the top. All right, so you now have already learned the basics. That's literally the hardest part of this and understanding as we kind of work our way. So when we start with a basic form and I come up, Again, we know all the ways that we can start a form. We can go over into the waffle. We can create a form in there. We can go to Drive and click the new button. We can click My Drive in there. We can right click in a blank space. But in true Virginia fashion, she's just going to go to Forms.new. Okay. Now, what you'll notice is when I go to Forms.new, look at the address of this. Excuse me, guys. The address still says docs.google.com, right? /forms. But forms.new works. The reason for that is because for a very long time, Forms was affiliated with Docs. Okay, now it's more affiliated with Sheets because that's where the real work is done in Sheets. But the address will still work there. And that's why there are people will say to you, you know, Google Docs, and they're talking about Docs, Slides, Sheets, Forms. That used to be the old name. They used to call all of those people, all the pieces, Google Docs, because it was a document. And then they changed it to Docs just being like the word component, the text component of it, word processing. All right, so the basic format. You have a toolbar set here. This is your title frame. This is your question slot, and this is where you add your pieces. I'm sure there's, I bet it right. There's a over here, a title over here. Now, when I make mine, I always make this title and this title a little different. And that sounds really weird, but I'll explain to you why in a minute. I'm going to close those. So I'm going to call this play form today, and I'm going to do August. And I'm going to go FGS. I'm going to know what that means. Okay. So these are going to be very similar, but not exactly the same. And I'm going to show you why. FGS play. Okay. If I take this and I have this question in here and I just write, how are you today? How are you feeling today? I know that's a weird question, but it's going to be important. I'm going to make it a short answer. And that's the only thing I put in here. I'm going to push preview. As I come through, I'm going to click preview like this. Do you notice that these have two different names now? One says FGS Play and one says Play Form Today, August FGS. This one is the actual document that I would share, and this one is the actual place I build. So there's a problem within Forms, and this is it. If I was going to come back and edit this, right? See my little pencil down here in the bottom left? If I click on this, what happens is it just opens the form up again. So let me go into preview mode. You see how I got a third one just opened up? And I'm going to click edit. And if I go into preview again, how it opens, it continues to open a new screen. And what will happen, and I only tell you this because I learned this the hard way, that I have gone into here and I have edited this document and then realized I had one back here. And I'm going to just put a date on this, right? So if I change this here and I went into preview mode, and then I came back here, okay, oh, it did edit, it changed it. Well, that's good because it never used to. It never used to change it backwards. So this is a trick that I usually teach people to do. Only keep 2 of these open at a time, okay? If I'm going to edit it, again, close this one and go back here. None of the other Google components do this. They don't continually open new windows up for you when you go to edit them, right? So just keep 2 open. You have this one and then you have this one. And you're like, yep, I looked at it. It looks good. I'm going to close this and go back to this. Does that make sense? That's like a sanity thing, because otherwise you're going to have 8 of them open. You're going to be like, oh my God, where am I? It wasn't updating before in the past, so they at least have fixed that, so help. So you can probably keep them the same name, but I'm just used to that habit. All right, so as we kind of work our way, titles, all those pieces. So now the other things, title, could put a description in. We've talked about the dot, but we've never talked about a double ellipses. So let's talk about that a little bit. Here is my title. Then I can have a form description. you do not, this is one of those times that it really is optional to have a description in there. There are times I use it. If I was going to send a form to parents and ask them for information, I would tell them right in here in the form description why you're collecting this, right? I'm using the status, so wait, you know, whatever you're going to say. If thank you so much for filling this out. This is going to help us find a better time to meet with your students. You know, this is, I'm collecting this for contact information to keep it all in one place. It doesn't, you know, whatever you're collecting. It could be very simple. It could be, you know, this is a quiz for unit 2, all right? It could be as simple as that, but it is really optional. You do not have to put things in there. This is where anytime I add like a question, my question will go in here, my responses will go at the bottom. I have to have 2 questions. These little ellipses are pull handles. Okay, these are also like little love handles. It allows me to move my pieces around, so I can move my questions around. So you don't necessarily have to put your questions, excuse me, in order. You can move them as you want to. You can just make them and then put them in the order you want them. You're not stuck with the order that they're there. You can duplicate a question. So I could have a question here, decide to duplicate this, okay? And I could say, how were you feeling yesterday, August 3rd, right? So looking for some differences in here. These are, when we duplicate a question, every time I think of that, it reminds me of state ed questioning where they change like one word and kids say that the question's exactly the same because they didn't read all the way through it, right? So you can always duplicate a question. I can throw a question out. I can just delete it. So garbage can. Probably this right here is really important, the required button. You're going to want to require questions to be answered, so you have to turn that on. You can't, I wish there was a way that you could require all the questions that you could just foul swoop, like click a little box and they would all turn on. That's not an option, which is kind of grumpy of, I just don't like that. And then the other one in here are some other pieces that we're going to go back to. So the 3 dots are always for more information. Description, go to a section based on an answer. This is a little higher. And then shuffle option order. So that basically means if I put a multiple choice question in here and I had 6 answers, I could do this so that every student, the correct answer would not always be A. It could be A, B, C, D, or E. It's going to be based on the actual answer. So your students couldn't cheat if they were in a room together. They couldn't just pick A altogether because it wouldn't always be correct. So that's another nice option. Okay, so that's the basics of like a layout. So the next one we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to look at the actual questions. So these is the, like a little question thing. This has changed a wee bit, but not a ton. You will see we have a new option in here. This changed very recently, and this is import questions, and we'll talk about that. So the plus sign is just like it sounds. It's just a question. So let's add a question. And we'll start with the real basis one. So the first question I am going to ask is, ooh, look at that. So that is interesting. I'm going to do that again and see what happens. Yeah, I was going to say, oh, it's turning questions on. It totally is not. I got all excited. I thought it was requiring them all the time. So question 1 is we're going to work our way right down the answers, right down the options. Short answer. So we did this one. We have our answer. How are you feeling today? There's our short answer question. Simple. Next one, we're going to write, what is the biggest issue you are dealing with in relation to coming back to school? Boy, that'll be a fun question, huh? Getting out of bed. And I'm going to put here, long answer. Okay, so that's because this is a short answer and it says short answer text. Kids won't see that. They won't see this. But with this, I would want more of an answer. So the next option I'm going to give them is paragraph. Somebody asked me, I think this is like 142 characters. I don't know the exact length of this or the exact length of this, but you can get a pretty long detailed answer. This is the equivalent of almost of an essay component. So the paragraph is like an essay component. Next one, let's go in next. Multiple choice, it defaults to multiple choice. So let's come in and say, my brain's not super working today. Do you like school? And you know, this is going to be okay. So did you see what happened under here? Yes, no, maybe. It says, oh, you're going to ask this question. How do you want to add it? As soon as I gave it a like yes or no question, it gave me those options to automatically add them all. So I can just say, yep, add all. So I don't even have to type those in. They'll automatically happen. I love that option, right? But I could put a question in was, how many spaces on a grand staff total? So if you don't know what a grand staff is, right? Short answer can't be a short answer. It has to be a multiple choice. So it would be 4. It could be 8. It could be 7. It could be 9. Okay, so it's one of those answers. Could be any one of those. You'll notice that I have in here the option to also add an image. So with younger students, this is a really nice thing. If you wanted to come in and find a picture, you could put a picture in and have a picture answer. So as you're putting your answers in, you have that option. And just like before, you have the ability to move your, see this? I can move them around as well. So anytime you see those double handles, those are those little pull handles that allow us to answers around. Click required. Still good? Everybody's good? It's still pretty easy, right? This is not, making forms is like the easiest thing, quite honestly, since sliced bread. Once you got the basics down, it's simple. All right, I just put 2 in because I thought that would be more exciting. Check boxes. Check all that apply. Or every teacher's favorite, nice typing bond. Everyone's least favorite answer. Yes. You notice I didn't ask a question. No. Purple. Thumb card. Okay. Boy, my brain is a little out there today. So they can click, you can have any question here and then check all that apply. So you're going to be able to have them click any of those required. Keep going. Next one. We'll add our next one. So the next one is a drop down. So let me show drop downs in action instead of just kind of showing you one, because it'll make more sense when you see one full blown. So here's preview. And I take all of your attendance sheets and I sign you all in. Isn't that nice of me? So here is a drop down, right? That's a drop down, right? Massive. It's a massive drop down. It's basically because I'm too lazy to type out, like when I have to type out Schenectady, Scotia, Glenville, Shenandoah, Burr, Knox, Westerlo. When I use it, I can just push the first letter and then I can arrow down. So that's the equivalent of a drop down. And there may be days that you want to use a drop down. I think it's used probably one of the least likely in a school setting, but there are sometimes you might want to do it. You might want to create a form that if you're a high school teacher, that's for every period of your class, right? So you have them put their names in, and one of the drop down might be pick your period class you're in, so that they can come in and they can just click it automatically. So that allows it to go much quicker. They don't have to type. All the answers are going to be similar. You're not going to get like period 7 with lower p, no space between the D and the 7, P7, capital P-E-R-D, right? They're all going to be exactly the same. So that's a time when you'd want to use a drop down when you need to answer that. So they're all exactly the same. They can only pick one in the drop down. That's a trick there. You can click all you want in a checkbox. So they can click all of these answers, but you can't in a drop down. You can only choose the one. So if you make a drop down and you do period 1, and you may want to put, you know, math 7, period 2, and it might be math 8. Not that you'd ever give these kids all the same questions, but you never know. Period 3, math 7B, okay, right? Maybe these guys are taking something. So you go through and they would come through and take it. When they came through, they would have to pick which period. That's all it looks like. And they can arrow down, which is pretty simple. All right, next one. Thanks. Oh, I just got it stuck underneath there and I can't see it. There we go. Perfect. Next kind of answer. Let's put a new one in. The file upload. So this one's kind of cool and I think it's underutilized. So I'm going to continue. Students can upload a file to you if they're using their school account. It only works in school accounts. Well, not true. I could use it in my personal account, but then only personal accounts could file upload to me. So when we think about students doing homework, submit your weekly template. So if you used a slide presentation and you had used Google Classroom to push it to your students, and they each made a copy, that would be one way. If you used a Google site and you did a forced copy of a slide presentation, they could put it in here. If you had students create their own slide presentations or their own docs, they could submit this way to you. So you can also only allow certain file types like a document and a presentation. Allow one file, and then you have to pick a size. You may have to go up to 1 gig. Maybe not for a document or presentation, but if I was going to do audio. So you see what you have options for. You may want students to just upload an image to you. This is just good practice for them to get into. Understanding that process. And then you do required, so this be required. So they're not going to be able to get any further unless they get that uploaded to you. So this kind of like changes the game a little when you see that there's a file upload, because it allows you to have a lot more options. When you build this, when you build a form, you may only do that. So I keep thinking science teachers, and I know Victoria and I were talking before about science teachers. This would be something I would do with labs. I would have all labs submitted this way, because then all your labs would be in one place and you'd have a copy of the lab, which for New York State seat time is really important for lab. And for most science teachers, they keep track of that paper. They have the paper copy, and God forbid the lab gets lost, right? Because if it gets lost, then they don't have it. But if you did it this way, you'd have that digital record of it, and you'd have them all in one place. They'd all be together in your Google Drive, so you wouldn't have to worry about losing it. And you don't have to have a filing cabinet of all of Virginia's labs for this year. Just something to think about in that process as you go through. Okay, so let's keep going. We're going to add another question. I'm going to throw this out and I'm show you something. See the blue line right here that's down the side? When I click and add a new question, like that, it pops in below. Anytime you add a new question, the question is going to go below where your blue line is. So I can still move them. That's just good to know. Because maybe you're in here and you're like, oh man, I want to put a question right here underneath that, and there it is. So when you do that, it'll automatically pop in. It's just gonna, it always adds a multiple choice question. Don't freak out, because you just come over here and pick what you want it to be. Let's make this one a linear scale, okay? On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best, how was your weekend? Okay, so, and that's really all you have to say, right? And we're going to do 1, and that's it. And they will think that when it comes through, they click, yep, 1, and you can do 0 to 10. Yep, 0 to 10, 1 to 5. You could do 1, 2, 3. And if I wanted to say, if I wanted to do, I could have 1 equals something, 2 and 5 equals, right? 1 is awful. Nice. Fantastic. Okay, somewhere in the middle. All right, so that's a linear scale. Let's come back down here, do this one. The next one, I keep just linking. No. Multiple choice grid. So this is the one that I showed you was like hamburger. So hamburger, hot dog. This is like a multiple choice, almost like a vocabulary quiz. So it's like this word equals that. It's almost like click and drag, except there's no click and drag. This one's used pretty, it's not used a lot because you can only have one choice. So row 1 would be Bobby to Susie. I can't even think of a classroom setting where I would use this. Let me think. I would probably do words and definitions. So let's do staff. I might put the words here. 5 lines or spaces. Sorry, you're going to get music teacher comes out. And let's do shows low notes, shows high notes. Okay, so I'm going to do 3 definitions here. Shows high notes. It's a good way to do this, so they have to match up the terms. Wow. And then this would be this column, and it doesn't matter where I put it. This would be treble clef. So this is kind of like a match bass clef. And this would be staff. So when we look at it, they're going to come in, they'll come down to the bottom, and you basically have to answer which one goes with which, right? So this one's high notes, this would be low notes, and this would be staff. So that's a way to do that. It's a way to kind of do a quick, and it's quick. So once you answer it 1, you can't use it. You could use it for 2. So it is possible that they could use the answer for the same one twice. That's just a little different idea of how to use that. The next one. Oh, and by the way, did you notice that in there, require a response in each row? You don't have to. I could force that, but I don't have to require a response in each row. Next one, the checkbox grid. So when you do, it's along the same lines, but this would be hamburger, hot dog, okay? So, and in here, I'm going to do ketchup, mustard, not mustards, mayo, pickles. So this is like how you build a hamburger. This I'm not going to do a response in each row. How do, how do you eat? So think about what that would look like if you were going to have a hamburger. So like a hamburger, I might want ketchup, mustard. So you can see you can do, this one allows multiple choices. This one only allows one. Well, this one, because I set it up, I did 1 response per row, right? So this one allows me to do it different ways. So hot dogs are only mustard, no pickles. Although I do know, I have friends who put mayo on their hot dogs. Woof. Yeah. That's a whole pile of crazy. All right, next one. And then we're almost done with the question types. Date. When do you want to meet? Or what is today's date? What's a good time to meet? So this is pretty simple. Good day to meet. And they can literally just click on, the calendar and pick the date. And then the time, the one that's after that is time. Pretty simple. The time one, they come through, they pick the time. They can choose an option to put a time in. So these might be required. So maybe these are for follow-ups with your students. It's a good way to do some other components like scheduling with teachers, scheduling with parents. All right, so that's all of them. That's all of the options. Phew, that's a lot of options. So let's do the other things that are kind of pretty to make the form nice, and I'll give you a couple of tips and tricks. We come across the top, you'll notice that you have a color palette. So the color palette is where I really do this customization of my form itself. You notice that I had a picture on mine. I am a huge proponent of use a picture because you're going to be able to look at it quicker and know what it is when you see a picture. So think about your classes that you have. If you're teaching, if Aylin is teaching 5 classes, she may want to color code her classes. Aylin, what do you even teach? I know that sounds so weird, but what do you teach? She's going to type for me. So English 9, she's got 5 classes of English 9, right? Period 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm giving them all to you in the morning. Isn't that sweet of me, right? So she may want to color code each one of those classes a different color, red, orange, yellow, green, purple, okay? When she does that, she's going to be able to see it visually much quicker. So use colors for your good, just like we did with our Google Drives. We can do the same exact thing with a form. I can keep this color, like I like the jelly beans, okay? But I can come in here and I can grab a new color. So you saw what I did. I'm going to add that color, and now doesn't matter what my picture is, but my form is purple, whatever it is based on that class. So that's going to allow her, when she's in her Google Drive and she sees all this stuff and she pulls up things like forms, when she goes here and she's like, hey, show me the forms, show me all the forms I got, right? Because she may have a buku bunch of forms, but see how much easier they are to look at when they're different colors and I know what color I'm looking for. That's going to make my life much easier than it is to have them all the same blah purple, even though I picked blah purple for that form. So that's just one of the, that's like a trick of the trade. The more we do that, leave that. Yep, thank you. And I think I did this one. Yep, there we go. So when we do something like that, cancel, thank you. You're really fussy today. So you can do that. Lots of other options, and don't use the same pictures. It will pick a color scheme off of your picture that you choose. But you have the ability to come back through and to override that color choice by using that plus sign, coming in and picking your own theme. And you can also change the background color. Now, the last thing they have down there, which is really nice, is they have font style. Now, don't get too excited. It's not like I can't bring in great fonts from, you get 4. That's it, right? I can't decide to go to my extensive fonts and have at it with fonts. You get 4. But 4 is better than what they used to have, which was 1. And that is, it's an improvement. So I'm happy with that. It's not perfect, but it is better. So once you're all done with this, you see there's nothing else. I can just close it. You also have the ability in here to add your own photos. You can upload your own, which I highly recommend because you can add some really cool things in there. So I have this picture right here of my daughter did this hiking. That's a beautiful picture, right? And I'm going to just say done. And all I had to do was move that around a little bit, which is also a very nice thing to do. It's going to sometimes it will always put your picture in first, then change your color. So you could continue to use the same kind of pictures. They're really fun to kind of have. If you've done a header for your classroom, for your Google Classroom, you could use your Google Classroom header in there as well. That's also a piece that you can do that is helpful. I know that I have a header, but not sure where that is. So that's the first one. We've done preview. We're going to come back to that. The next one is settings. This is where you do like kind of the work that goes along with the form. 3 pieces. I'm going to stop for a minute and I'll go through them. I'm going to go through all of them and then I'm going to come back and show you how to set up a quiz. I do quizzes very differently than most people. I do what I just did. I always write my questions first and then go back and do like how much they're each worth and put them in. If you go and do it another way, I'll teach you that way as well. So what do you want to do? You want to collect email addresses. So if I tell it I want to collect email addresses, I'm going to, it will, and I save it, it's going to automatically put that up as the first thing in here. Now, you're going to know, that's a way for you to know who filled it out. You're going to know who filled it out, but with students, I highly recommend that. They'll just populate that right in, right off the bat. If you don't want to do email addresses and you just want to do their name, that can always be like first thing on the paper is your name. So you can put that right into the form. And if they don't do it, require it, they can't get any further. So this makes them put that information in. The next one, do I want to require it to one sign-in? So one sign-in means that the student can only come and use it one time. And sometimes that's absolutely, yes, that's all I want. One time only. That's all I want to do with them. But there are other times when I may use a document like this one, my sign-in sheet, right? I use this over and over and over again. So one of my settings is that I do not limit it to one signing. right? Because this is a document that I use. And you can use things for you. We'll talk about that. So if it's a quiz, excuse me, you're going to want to limit to 1. Do you want them to edit after submit? Excuse me, I have the hiccups. It depends. If it's a test, that's a hard no, right? We don't want them to come back in and make changes because Susie will tell them that number 8 was like B instead of A, right? You don't want them to edit. Do you want them to see summary charts and text responses? That's like your own call. I never use that. You don't really need it. Next one across, presentation. Do you want to see a progress bar? So I'm going to stop right here. Please don't put 86 questions in your test, in your form. And I know people will laugh, but someone in the spring made a form with 86 questions and didn't understand why his kids couldn't get through it. You cannot save a form in the middle. Okay, that's a really important thing. Students can't start a form and come back to it. So that's important. When I used to give a music test, my kids had 40 minutes to take a test, but I divided it into 3 sections. They had like multiple choice, and they had short answers, and then they had like fill in the blank, or I guess that was short answers, multiple choice, vocabulary, and then they had like a short little essay there. So 4 parts. So if I had to work remotely and in that same kind of setting, I would probably make 2 different forms, and I would just have them do the first one and then do the second one if I felt like I was going to run out of time, right? So that I could have those 2 pieces. So Aileen, that may work really well for you if you have students have to do an essay and you want them to do it through a form. You may want to break the essay off the rest of the form, because they'll be able to do one part and then do the next part. And then you don't have to worry about them losing data in the middle. And I think that's just helpful. You're still going to get all the information, and you can actually make the second form feed to the first document. So, and I'll show you how to do that. So it's pretty easy. Okay, so progress bar, where are they along? So you've got 10 questions, you may want to do that. If I put a section break in mind, which I did not, and it's right here. So if I do this and I did a section break, this one right here, add a section, it's just going to break it. This would actually go to the next page. Okay, so they did like 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you say continue to the next section, remember the one that I showed you started with, I had to answer all the questions and it took me to the next, it looks like the next page. That's what that does. For some students, that is super helpful. Students with disabilities, that's huge. Because if they have 3 questions on a page, that is much easier than the like 20 questions on a page. So think about that too, is like kind of break up your sections. That's helpful for students. Even if it's like, if they can see 5 and they can do some and they can kind of rest ahead and then they can come back and do 5 again, that's easier. So smaller chunks makes it easier. There's really no change in the amount they have to do. But to them, you know, it's like when you get a state exam and you open it up and you turn the page and you're like, oh my God, this passage is 4 pages long. What do we all do? We kind of just turn right off. It makes more sense for them. Mentally, they'll attend to it a little better when it's broken up into pieces. It really is no change, but you know, we just play the game sometimes because it works well. So presentation still in there. Do you want to shuffle the question order? I never shuffle question order. The form will work it all out for you and show you who responded on what. This is more, I think, when students are taking it together, you want to shuffle question order. Sorry. If I limit to 1 response, this will turn off. See how that's grayed out? It automatically does the work for me. So if I don't limit to 1, it'll show me a link to submit another response. That's what I have turned on here. When I go all the way through, when I get it all done, it say submit another response, and I'll be like, yep, thanks. And I just keep going. So that's one of those options you can do. So the last one is quizzes. You can also put a thank you, like, thanks, you get your grade later, thanks for your responses, nice little note. So we're all done and you submit it, you get it back. Thank you very much for taking the time to fill out this form. If it's for your kids, it's like, thanks, you'll get a grade later. So the last one is quizzes. So when I turn on quizzes, things are going to change over here. Okay. When do I want to release grades? Immediately after each submission, or or later after manual review. I am a later after manual review kind of girl, especially if I have a short answer, long answer, and I'm going to show you why in just a minute. This is okay if the only options you're going to give them are multiple choice. So immediately after submission, because there's only 1 or 2 right answers. If it requires anything with a short answer, you can't possibly figure out all the ways that your students would write that out. So, because little duffers probably don't know how to spell, right? Or spell well, right? So if they wrote through and they wrote THRU or THREW or THROUGH or TROUGH, you would know that trough was really supposed to be through, right? But the computer won't. You'd be able to give them credit for that, where the computer would not under if it was immediately scored when it's short answer. And THROUGH is different than capital THROUGH. So you'll be like, oh my God, you just can't possibly come up with all the wrong answers. You just can't. So, or quite honestly, you probably can't come up with all the right answers either. So to see their missed questions, I would always want my students to see their missed questions, but I would not want them to see their correct answers. Because if my students were taking the test all at the same time, they could share the answers. So I might even give them that, right? Because that's going to be important. And do I want them to see point values? This becomes your own decision about what you want saved. So when I create a quiz, I usually do what I call the V method. I come in, I title it, I come down, I write my questions, and then I come up and I go into my settings and I turn on the quiz. So, because then I have to come back in. Now, other people will come in, put their questions in, and I call this one the T method. They come in, put their title in, they come right over and turn on the quiz. And then they come back in and they put their questions in. That doesn't work for me. I just don't know why. I think it's my mentality. I always used to write the questions and then figure out what they should all be worth when I knew how many questions I had. That's just my brain. So when I come in here, you'll see, how are you feeling today? I have to put, the minute I click on the question, I have to put the answer key in. So I could have this just be a 0-point question. Like this would be my social emotional check-in with my kids. I just want it on the quiz, but I'm not going to score it. All right. So I'm going to say done. That one's not worth anything. So this one, I'm going to do a long answer, and this one there, I'm not going to give it an answer key, but it is going to be worth 10. So done. And you can do feedback. I'm probably going to do manual feedback. And this is another question that really can't be answered, right? So I click on it, you know, there's no wrong answer. This one's going to be worth 5. Done. There's no wrong answer. So when I click answer key, I can give feedback, but there's no wrong answer. But there will be here, okay? Answer key. Going to make it 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see how I'm clicking, adding in. They have to like school. It's the only option I'm giving them. Say done. So if they come in and say no, they're not going to get points for it. Or I could do this. Every answer is correct. Done. This is nice, huh? Next one. How many spaces on a grand staff total? It's 8. That's a trick question, Virginia. You can also type over them. You don't have to arrow up if you want them to type over them. So 8 is the correct answer. And on this one, I can feedback. So I can do it for incorrect answers or correct answers. And you can actually link a video in here. So if you wanted to send them back into a video. So this is more along the lines of if I was going to do like an entrance ticket or an exit ticket, I would maybe want to do that with my students and say, remember when we did this here? Click on it and go back through. It's not too hard, all right? So you can see that's the easy part. When you're all done and then you have it, you always, always, always preview, okay? Don't skip the preview. You'll notice that I've previewed a lot today, right? I'll check it, I'll go in and I'll preview. Never skip the preview, because the issue is if you skip the preview, you don't know if you have a spelling error, right? You just don't have a clue whether you've done that or not. So I am a huge proponent of do the preview. Last spot, we're going to go into send. 2 ways to send them. So I can collect emails when I send them. I can hand type them in, right? So I find that this is a patooey pain in the badookie. I hate doing this, but I do it. They do not, they will self-populate to a certain amount. They will self-populate within your domain because your students are in there, right? Because you have them in. Because I'm in a personal account, they do not do that. Subject, I've invited you to fill out a form. You could change this. Please fill out before next class. Oh my goodness, Virginia cannot type twice. Now, include form in the email. If I do that, why can I? That's weird that I can't click that. Huh, I don't know why. You can usually do this. If I include it in the email, what it does is it sends like a snapshot, like here's the email, and then the form is literally in the email so you see it and people can answer right in there. If you don't and you just send it, it's going to go as a link, right? It's going to go as a link like this. They'll click on you can grab the link. So if I include it, this form that I see back here will be in the email. And they can just answer the question. If I send it like this, they'll get a link that they click on. It'll bring them to the form. They'll get the answers either way. Doesn't matter which way you do it. If I do it this way, if I copy the address, so copy this and I go into my email, you see copy to my clipboard, I can take this and I can send this to someone, right? Or I usually take the shortened email because that long email address is a little wonky, crazy. You can control C to copy. And I take that. You'll never embed. Trust me, you'll never use that piece. So I can copy that. So the benefit of that Google form is when you send it in an email like that, or you send someone a link to it. So if I sent this to you like this, see, I just copy that. See the nice long email that's now in the chat or the long address? That's ridiculous, right? The shortened one will be shorter, concise. You can quickly email it to somebody, or you can quickly take that. Nope, I clicked the wrong button. I can go to the send. I can quickly grab this, shorten the URL, copy that, and I could put that into the chat when I was working with the students. So maybe it's an exit ticket before they walk out the door. You can have them do a really quick, like 3-question exit ticket. Like, what was your takeaway? What did you learn today? What are you wondering about, and what do you need more help with, right? So you could have those 3 questions really quick in an exit ticket that every student does before they leave, and you can just put it up in a chat to keep it really simple. I totally went off script and did not even follow this a little tiny bit. I just want to make sure it's all in. I promise it's all in here. Isn't that nice? Sometimes I have some examples in here. I don't want you to forget that you can always use a Google form for your own information. Reading logs. So there's a copy of a reading log in here, which, Aylin, you're going to love me as an English teacher. If you want students to keep track of their reading, feel free to make your own copy and keep this. You can have students create their own reading log. This would be an example of not limiting to one response. You'd want like students, because you could also just say, like, what did you get in the book? Like, how many pages did you read tonight? To have students, and this might be your entrance ticket into a session with students, meeting small groups, or they're talking to you and you're filling it out as you go, just to make sure they're still reading. Another thing, there's a book checkout in there. There's a discipline referral. Nobody wants to do those. But also think about creating a form for yourself, something like this, where you're keeping track of your parent contact. I think that's going to be really super valuable, because you may want parent name, you may want the date you met with them, and then you may want the 3 ways you did: phone call, email, face-to-face, online, and then at the bottom you may just want the context of what it was. That's okay for you to have your own forms that you can use for your betterment of your own good. You may want to have one that's, you know, for your kids too. When did I meet my kids? So you could almost do attendance in here real quickly, but if you did small group meetings, you could also have those as well. So things like, you know, here's your list of kids. Aileen's got, you know, period 1. This one might be period 1. These are the kids that I met with in small group today. And then just have like, you'd have the date and you'd have like what you talked about. Because what happens when you do this, you get responses and you get multiple ways to get responses. I'm sorry, I'm late today. I'm really wordy, but I'm almost done. You get a summary. Here's my questions, right? Here's how they summarize. You see, you get these nice little charts, right? You also get individual responses. There's my questions. There's the answers to my questions. Individual responses. So here's how people answered each one of these questions. But I also can take it, and the first time I do this and I click on this, it will say, do you want to create a form, a sheet? And say, yes, I do, because then you have it in a sheet. Because every time you meet with Susie's parents, you're now going to have it on a sheet, not on 5 million pieces of paper spread out, some at home, some in your office, some in your book, some in your date book, right? They're all going to be in here. So that's a huge valuable thing to have them all in one place. All right. The last thing I'm going to show you, really important. It's just probably for sanity more than anything else. There's a spot in here. If you notice, I came into my responses and I came to the 3 dots. And right here, it says get email notifications for new responses. So if you give a quiz and you've got 80 kids taking it and you're down to the last 15, you may want to come in and you may want to turn that on so you see when the last 15 come in. Okay, that's a great way. So you're not going back in and checking it to see, yep, I got 65. Yep, I got 67. Yep, this will send you an email for those last ones that come in. That can be a super valuable thing. All right, you can also do all these other things in here, but you're probably never going to need all those. Anytime you copy and paste a form, so nope, take that back. Anytime you make a copy of a form, it strips all the responses out of it so you can use it again. So you're going to make this form like once yourself, Aileen, and you're going to change it to period 1, and then you may change it. You make a copy, it'll still say copy reading log period 1. You'll take off copy of, you'll rename it to reading log period 2, and then you'll have it. You don't have to worry about those kind of things. Like, it's not going to move your stuff along. Okay, that was a lot. And I'm sorry, I spent a lot of time on the actual responses. I think that's usually what people want more, how each one of those responses work. I, of course, will always send the video out to you guys. You know, I've actually been pretty timely this week or the last couple days because they're coming through fast. I usually have them by 9:30. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to stay, but I am done with this session, my stuff. If you have anything else you want, let me know. You know that you always have my contact information. I didn't do the tips and tricks, which is the last page, but I think I kind of talked through them pretty simply. Make sure if you have any questions, I'm going to stay. If you start to build a form and it's not doing what you want, just reach out to me. I know Kara has done that before and something else. I am always here available for you. Just shoot me a quick email and we'll set up a WebEx or a Google Meet or a Zoom or whatever is your like preference, and we'll pop in and we can just talk our way through it. So I'm going to stop recording. And listen, I'm at 58 minutes. I started late.